All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christy Underwood. I'm the Executive Officer of the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. Thank you all for joining us today for our Barber Examination Town Hall meeting. We are happy to have with us our PSI representatives from our exam vendor who are going to go over the content for the barber examination in some hopes to give all of you barber schools a little more information on the content of the exam, and we will have a question session at the end of this so that we can take your questions. And hopefully this will be super helpful as we move forward in our examinations. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over and I'll allow the two of you to introduce yourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christy. Good morning. I'm Sean Condor. I'm with PSI. I'm the account manager, and I kind of deal with the day-to-day business. So I also have Lynn Thomas with me. I'll let Lynn introduce herself.
Good morning. I'm Lynn Thomas. I am the director for the Cosmetology Division at PSI. We are happy to be here, and we hope that we've come with some good information for you and that it's going to help you along the way. So, Sean, I'll let you take it.
Okay, great. We decided to call this the Barbershop Quartet Tour because there's 4 points that we're going to hit: education, test information, study suggestions, and positive test experiences. And so I want to kind of move ahead with that and talk a lot about the education portion of it. We'll talk a little bit about how PSI develops the exams and so forth. So this will be some good information for you. I would definitely take some notes and we can go ahead with that. Go ahead, next slide, please. As far as our psychometrics, we follow professional standards and best practices to provide our exams. Our exams are valid, reliable, fair, secure, and legally defensible. We use subject matter experts to develop our tests. We have actually over 350 credentialing clients and over 5,000 credentialing exams that we develop. And so PSI is definitely in the test development business. We have departments that take care of this and make sure these tests are developed the way we need them to be developed. Next, please. As far as California Barber topic performance, this is kind of how the results are coming back to us. The barbers are performing highest in the following topic areas: in their client consultation, which is 11% of the exam; safety and infection control, which is 29% of the exam; a hair, scalp, and skin analysis, that's 2% of the exam; hairstyling is 5% of the exam; and shaving is 24% of the exam. So these are the topics that are being performed well in California. Some of the lowest areas are skin care, which is 2% of the exam. That's the skin analysis, the facials, massage manipulations, and the tool device safety. Chemical services, 18% of the exam. So that's a pretty big chunk of the exam that we're seeing the lowest scoring in. That's the product chemistry, hair color, lightening, chemical relaxing, application procedures, hair coloring, and lightening, permanent waving. So those are those pieces that one should say actually relaxer, I believe. So, but the chemical services, we are seeing that the barbers are performing low. And the hair cutting, which is 9%, that's tool safety, razors, and shears, of course. So those are the places that we'd really like to see some focus on. Sounds like everybody's doing well on the others. So if you were wondering where the low pass parts are coming from, those are the lowest topic areas that we're seeing. Okay, go ahead, next slide. As far as education goes, we can't utilize enough or reinforce enough that schools should be using up-to-date textbooks. And the reason being is because the infection control portions, which is a big part of our examinations, and you're doing well on, are updated in those textbooks over and over and over again. So we want to make sure that you're using up-to-date textbooks and also holding theory classes. With your exams going to theory, that's very important that you reinforce your theory classes, make sure that you have a good curriculum that you're following, And later on, we're going to go over the content outline. Lynn will go over the content outline so you can see exactly what's on the exam and maybe structure your education in your school accordingly. Next slide. And also, there's the CIB out there, and the CIB is very important. I know that it gets downplayed a lot, but reading the CIB and having your candidates or students have that CIB in their hand is extremely important. I highly recommend that you download fresh CIBs every time you have these to students going to take exams. But read that CIB. That's where the content outline is. That's where all the rules are, and so forth. So you want to be sure to download those CIBs and use them. Next slide. So this is the candidate examination bulletin. This is what it looks like in case you've not downloaded one. And it does have a table of contents so that you can see each and every part of that and make sure that you have that information and use this information when your student goes to test. Next slide, please. I'm going to have Lynn go over the study suggestions.
All right. Okay, so I want to share with you some study suggestions that we have come up with throughout the years that has become very, very helpful in the sense of what we call target studying. So if we could go to the next slide, let's pull up the content outline now. I can't read that from here, so pardon me. I got to get all that here. And see, I still can't see it. Can we get that in here? Oh, that would be amazing. I'm getting a paper copy, so that'd be great. I used to think it was going to be cute to have reading glasses, and now I'm thinking probably not so cute when you come to stuff like this. Okay, so in this content outline, you should be able to find this in your candidate information bulletin. And what we want to look at is that the topics that Sean was talking about. If you'll notice this first one, it says 29%. When you look at this, this is telling you that there are going to be 29 questions on the test that have to deal with these categories. If you see safety and infection control is the title, and then underneath that, that A is the workstation and environment, and underneath A is 1, chemical labeling, storage, and disposal. Then you have OSHA and safety data sheets. And then B would be safe working practices. So as you go through the content outline, you're going to be able to break this down and know exactly in what categories is it going to be covered, the safety and infection control. If you take this and use this as your guide to study with, it will help you tremendously. In the candidate information bulletin, let me see here, I've got a copy of it. I want to see where it's located. If you look at page 9, this is where I am in the candidate information bulletin. When you look at these things and these topic areas, this is where you want your students to concentrate. And if it was me as an instructor, I would take each of these sections as part of my theory when we're preparing for the theory examination, and I would just focus on this one particular area at a time. Don't try to do the entire content outline and cram it all in. Throughout your education, you should be breaking these down in some way in your theory classes in order to help these students begin to understand. Another good thing to use is their score reports, and we'll get into that when we get to the score reports, and I'll bring it back to this content outline to show you how you can use this. But if you go in your textbooks, whether it be the Milady Barber book or the Pivot Point Barber book, either one, you're going to be able to find these areas in those textbooks. Everything is referenced on the exam, is referenced to those 2 textbooks, and follows this content outline. So if it's not in the book, and it has to be in both books in order for us to be able to use it as an item. If we were going to take a look here at the the safe working practices, and if you'll take a look at number 2, let's look at client protection. What is client protection? That's draping, that's proper draping. Those types of things are what you're going to find under that heading of client protection. If you'll go into the textbooks and you look in the index, you're going to find that you'll see where it talks about client protection or draping. Maybe it doesn't call it client protection, maybe it calls it draping. So then when you go and look up draping, you're going to see every page where it's listed that they're speaking of client protection related to draping. At that point, that's the area that you need to have your students read and study from. And I say that because in target studying, what we're doing there is that as a group, when we come to group as subject matter experts and we come together and we need to write an item for an exam, our psychometricianist tells us, okay, we need more items on the test about draping. So we all go to the textbooks, we all go to the index, we look up where we might find draping, and we looked on those pages. And from those pages is where you're receiving the information that was used when developing that item on the test. So then when your student goes to take the exam, the language looks the same. It doesn't look any different. I hope this is making sense to you, but it's really a good way to target things down and figure out where to go to study. When we get to the score report, you'll see how we can connect these two together. But for right now, if you look under the cleaning and disinfection, if you look at B, the disinfectants, go to the textbook, look at the index, find where they talk about disinfectants. Send your students to those pages and just study those pages. Don't study the entire book about the disinfectants, just those areas where that it specifically talks about disinfectants, because that's where your test questions are going to come from. It makes it a very easy way to study without having to cram in so much information. And the results that Sean gave you where you're the lowest, those are the areas that I would concentrate the most on. Those are the areas that your students are struggling in. So stay within those areas and follow that same concept. I believe it will help you tremendously. Is there anything else that you, oh, the reference books, okay. Next slide, please. Let's talk about these references here. I did touch a little bit on that, but the Pivot Point Fundamentals Barbering is the Barber reference that we use, and the Milady Standard Barbering 2017 is the other Barber book that we use. And like I said earlier, if a test question that's been written, it doesn't automatically go on the exam. It has to go through some procedures before it can be put on the exam. So for instance, if we write a question about disinfection, that question then goes to be, one, is it referenced in both books in a way that it can be the same, so that one is not above the other, that it's equal. And then if that is determined that, yes, it's in both books, then it goes through a process that is on the test, but it's not counted against nor for a student. It's a way for us to gather information and data on that particular item to verify that it's going to be a valid item to be able to use. So we get some statistics on it first, and then it's able to go to the exam once that has been approved and moved forward. But there is nothing on the exam that is not referenced in either one of these textbooks, one or the other. Okay, next slide.
Okay, we want to make sure that everyone has a positive test experience, and part of that test experience is, we hope your students go and they're successful in passing. Next slide, please. They're successful in passing, but let's say they have a little issue and they don't pass. We do produce a score report. I'm going to have Lynn kind of go over this according to the outline and show you how that works. Lynn?
Okay, so let's go back. Here's the score report here, if you can take a look at it. And then I want to go back to the content outline. If you see this score report, this is an unsuccessful score report. So what I would suggest is that you tell your students that if they have not been successful, to please come back to you. Work with them together with their score report and the content outline side by side. Let's determine where their weaknesses are. If you look at this, their hairstyling and it looks like skin care was their best scores. Those two scores I would completely throw out of the the element of what you're about to do, because they already understand it, they know it, that's why they've scored as high as they have. There's no point in filling their head back up with other things in this area that only gets confusing. But when you look at this report, we've got several areas that are in the 50s, and it looks like a 33% on the chemical services. There's your key to really go into the content outline now, and let's look at that one. That one needs to improve considerably, at least 20% or more, in order to be able to be successful in those areas of this exam. So if you go and look on the content outline with Roman numeral 6 under chemical services, you're going to see these categories for products and product chemistry, hair coloring, hair lightening, permanent waving, chemical relaxing, hair and scalp preparation, precautions, metallic and compound dyes, minerals, application procedures for hair coloring and lightening, permanent waving, and chemical waving. So by the score report, we can only see that they're weak in that area. So we're going to have to spend some time and break this down to study in this area. So let's just take minerals, for example. So we're going to go in the index, and we're going to look up the minerals according to color, applications, color, product, whatever it might be under the word minerals. And then you're going to go to the textbook under those pages that are listed in the index that's going to discuss the minerals or the metallics. They're probably right close together there, compound dyes, and you're going to study just those areas of that chapter. Don't go through the entire thing of chemical services. We're only going to break this down according to the content outline because that's what's actually on the test. So when you're looking that up and you're reading it, there are areas there where we have developed a question, or the psychometricians and subject matter experts have developed a question from that particular area of the book. Read that, have them study those pages. You can make up questions for them regarding that particular area. We've had instructors in the past make their own study guide based on this by looking at the weakness areas of their school and where their students are the weakest in, and then help them with that study, using that as a study guide for them. This score report is so important to you to be able to help that student and for the student to be able to use. This is a great exercise for them. Do up a mock score report here and have them work on whatever you create as a weak area, knowing where your school is weak, just to see how they're doing. Maybe even look at your theory program that you work with them on theory in class and begin to start building this area based on this content outline. This is so important. The outline itself is really the foundation of what your study habits should be. These items are what's on that test, and knowing what's on there is going to help them and improve their scores by being able to follow that and then using a score report to see where their weaknesses are and target study in that area. I hope that helps you. Next slide. Is there another slide, Sean? Oh, we got questions. So if there's any questions out there for me or Sean, we're happy to answer those questions for you.
So at this time, we will ask if we have any questions in our audience right now that you would like to state. Otherwise, we can go, okay. We'll go to our moderator and open it up for the questions for our users online.
This is the moderator. For the users who are online, I've opened up the Q&A feature. You can click the Q&A icon, look at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen and type the word comment, or you can use the raise hand option, which is next to your display name. And let me check if there's any audio-only participants. Yep, it looks like we do have a lot of audio-only. So for our audio-only participants, if you would like to raise your hand, you can press *3 on your device. And I'll pause a moment to see if anyone has any questions. Right, and it looks like we do have a request from one of our call-in users. I'm going to request to unmute. Please follow the instructions on your device on how to unmute your phone.
Julie. I have a question. I have somebody who his reading comprehension is not great. Like he gets almost 100% when I study with him, but then when he's taken the test 3 times, and I think it's because his reading comprehension isn't good. So I'm wondering if I could get a reader for him.
Hi, this is Alex. Yes, he could have a reader. When applying for the exam, you should look for the reasonable accommodation form on our website, and he should submit that with his application.
Thank you.
Right, this is the moderator. We have a question from Kenya Beasley. And Kenya, I'm going to request to unmute your microphone. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Is there a way, we've had some students that have gone and passed the test and are looking for their results. Is there a way for students who have successfully passed to get the results of their exams?
Hi, this is Alex. Yes, there is a way for you to get the results. You would reach out to PSI. You can also reach out to the board at barbercosmo@dca.ca.gov, and we can give you those results as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. We have a request for question from Myra Garcia. And Myra, I'm going to request to unmute. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
The reasonable accommodation form can only be sent via mail right now and not submitted with an online application. Will this be changing soon?
Currently, we can only have those submitted by mail. That's the only way at this time.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. I don't see any other requests for questions or comments.
This is Christy. So I just want to, we have almost 100 people online, and I just really want to encourage you to ask any questions that come to mind about the exam. As you all know, we have seen some lower passage rates on our exam, especially with the barber. So we have a captive audience here today. I really encourage you to ask any questions about the exam, any information that you've just heard. Otherwise, if we don't have any questions, then we'll close our meeting and go from there. But give us, we'll give you a few minutes to think of any questions that you might have.
All right, looks like that got people motivated. So I do have a couple people who have raised hands and submitted in the Q&A. I'm going to go in the order that they received, so please be patient. First, I have Myra Garcia again. And Myra, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
I know somebody had a question in regards to finding test results, but what we are having an issue with is a lot of students are going to the Walnut Creek location in California, and they are not, they're being marked absent when PSI is having technical difficulties. And as you know, with our quarterly reports, that is marked as an absence and a no-show. So that is a negative test result. Instead of it being just rescheduled, they are still, again, being marked as absent, which puts our percentages down further. So is PSI doing something to make sure that those are not marked as absent, since PSI was the one that was having the technical issue?
Yeah, I would encourage you to send us an email with that question because it's not something that we could answer today, but it's definitely something we'd like to look into for you.
This is Lynn Thomas with PSI. I would like to open it up for you to send an email to cosmetology@psionline.com or barber@psionline.com with that question. That'll put it on our radar and we can get it to our IT people to begin to work on that issue. Thank you.
All right, so next we have Wendy Perez, and Wendy, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
That is bilingual, or maybe not English fully, and there's no interpreters available, nor is the test available in that language. What do you recommend? Would that be a reader for them? And if so,
I'm so sorry, but we did not get that question. If you wouldn't mind repeating it maybe a little louder.
certainly. How about now? Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
Okay. I have a student that English is not the first language. Tests are not available in Farsi, nor are there interpreters. Do you recommend a reader? And if so, where can we get this reader?
Hi, yes, so that's correct. The exam is not available in Farsi, so it would be up to the applicant if they wanted to bring an interpreter. I know you mentioned there is not interpreters, but there has to be something out there for Farsi applicants. And for a reader, I don't think we can make a recommendation on that. It's dependent on what the applicant is in need of. So that's the best way I could answer that question.
May I have a follow-up?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Would this be under reasonable accommodations as well? Is that how we would go about this?
So for the reader for reasonable accommodations, there needs to be a reason why. Normally we would require some sort of medical substantiation. So if the applicant has something like that, then that's possible.
Thank you.
All right, next individual is Leah Urbina, and Leah, you'll be there's no time limit, I'm sorry. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device. And Leah, I'm going to request to unmute one more time. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
So my question is, I see that there is a practice test for the cosmetology applicants, but there is no practice test for the barber applicants. I was wondering if that will be added sometime down the road, or would you guys recommend that? Because I know Cosmo and barbering go hand in hand. Do you recommend the barbers use the Cosmo practice test instead, or yeah?
Currently, we don't have the barber test on the practice test. The cosmetology test would definitely help. I would recommend that they take that. The barber test will be available, practice test will be available first quarter of 23.
Okay, perfect. That's great, because I tell the barbers to go ahead and do the Cosmo, but they look at me like, we're doing barbering. And I'm like, they
Right.
go hand in hand. So, I really do recommend the Cosmo for them. But yeah, we'll go ahead and relay that message, and hopefully by 2023 we are able to start using the barbering one.
Great. Yeah, the structure of the question is what we want them to learn,
Mm-hmm.
how the questions work and so forth. So for now, that cosmetology test, will really help them, but the barber one will be out first quarter.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is the moderator. I'm going to move to the comments submitted in the Q&A, and I'm going to hop back to the raised hands just because the Q&A people have been waiting a little while. So our first individual is May Lahan. And one moment while I find you in the attendee list. There you are. May, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
For this meeting. It's very informative already. My question is, a lot of our students have applied online and it takes 2, 3, sometimes more months for them to receive a reply from the board. And I'm just wondering what the process is when they apply online versus when they apply in mail. And one other part of that is the official transcript. Are they required to take an official transcript with them to PSI if they have uploaded their proof of training on the website to apply for their exam?
So just to kind of give a little overview of the process, our applications can take up to 8 weeks to process. If they apply online, though, that's removing 3 weeks from it, so it is a bit faster. And if anyone's not getting a date, it's, very case by case. There could have been a number of things that have happened. But normally what we're seeing, at least by what we're seeing in our emails, is that people haven't gotten their PSI exam booklets for whatever reason. Maybe their address is wrong when they applied. Maybe they have a forwarding address on file and government mail is not forwarded, so they wouldn't have gotten their booklet. It's just very situational. But once they do get their booklet, they're supposed to be calling PSI to schedule their exam. So they don't get a date automatically. And then as far as the proof of training document goes, once they apply, they should be submitting that proof of training with their application. That's very important. And they do not need to bring that with them to the exam.
This is Christy. I just want to jump in real quick and make a comment about that as well. Just so everyone that's on the call understands that we are receiving a very high number of deficient applications. It's often because the applicant, when applying online, is not pressing the attach button. And so they believe they've uploaded their POT, but you have to still select the attach button at the bottom. It's super important to tell your students about that attach button, because if the application is deficient, we send a letter saying that it's deficient, and when they send that information back, it goes back in line with everyone else that has submitted information before them. So we receive thousands of applications a week. So to get those applications done correctly the first time is going to save a lot of time. We have POTs that are not signed. We have applications that are not signed, or all the answers not provided, and that's going to increase a deficiency. It's going to add 3 to 4 weeks to your application processing.
Okay, this is the moderator. Our next individual is Mercedes Hing. And Mercedes, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. I think my question was already answered. It was mostly about the practice test for barbers. So I want to see if there was any maybe more specific questions. So that answered my questions. So good to know the first quarter of 2023 it'll be out. Thank you.
All right, and we have Myra Garcia again. And Myra, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions apparently. When will Breeze and PSI start communicating better their websites? Once the board has approved an application and accepted it, it still does not show on their PSI student profile that they have been accepted. At the school that I work with, we connect them by looking for their file. So that is one way that we've been able to schedule them. But the communication between the applicant being accepted and PSI actually showing that they're ready to be scheduled is none, basically.
So it does, once we approve the application, it does take 2 days at least for our record to be transferred to PSI. If you're not finding that, we need to know because we are not aware of any problems we have with that.
All right. Looks like our next individual is Travis. And Travis, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
I was asking about the PSI practice test. I'm looking on the website right now and I see the deluxe practice test. Is that what you guys are talking about?
I'm not sure that I'm familiar with a deluxe practice exam. There are different exams out there. I believe we have the cosmetology, we have esthetician, we have a nail technician, and I know that they're working on the barber right now and a couple of the others. But I'm not aware of a deluxe one. That's really new if that's out there.
I'm not sure because I see one that says barber theory, 41 items. And there's one that says cosmetology theory, 154 items.
Okay, so your barber theory, maybe they do have it ready. I'm not real positive on that. I have not heard that it's been launched. And if it is, it may be an older one. But with those practice tests, you need to understand those are like knowledge testing. They're not the test questions that will be on the exam. They're just there to help study or test the knowledge of your student on that particular type of topic or that kind of an item. So don't mistake those for being the test questions that are on the licensure exam because they're not. It's just like base knowledge.
Of course. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, this is the moderator. Our next individual is 4M Education. And 4M, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay, awesome. So the PSI online store, those theory practice exams, they do a great job of showing us how the questions are structured. I do understand that they're not the exact questions, but they do do a great job of showing the structure of the questions. I'd like to know when the barber theory exam will be available in Spanish. I know we're talking about the practice test on the bulletin, but when will they be available for purchase on the PSI online store in Spanish?
Are you talking about the the practice test being in Spanish?
Yes, the Spanish barber theory. The previous question was in regards to the PSI online store. I think that's what he was referring to when he said the deluxe practice test. So that's only available in English. Will you have that available in Spanish soon?
Yes, once we complete it and get it online in English, we will have a translated version on there as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next individual is Erica Rivera. And Erica, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Oh,
Hello, we can hear you.
oh, thank you. I'm sorry. Maybe I misheard the question earlier because I started hearing more about PCI practice and I got it confused with the practical testing. So this is just for California. As of right now, we're continuing just doing theory examinations, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Right, this is a moderator. I'm going to go back to the raised hands. And it looks like we have Robert Vela. Robert, if you could please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Okay, now I couldn't hear anyone. Hi, so my name is Robert Vela. I'm from the Vela's Master Barbering and Cosmetology apprenticeship program. My question, excuse me, is why did we switch over to this new written examination from the previous one that we had?
That's not really a question we can answer at this meeting. The contract was over with the previous one, and this is the new contract.
Oh, got it. So I was just wondering if the information was antiquated or, this is why I'm asking. It's not like I'm trying to pry. I was just curious in terms of the content of information, just because it just seemed like everything was just so much straightforward based on the results that we're seeing. Statistically, what we're looking at are lower test scores in the area of, and I'm speaking primarily in terms of the barbering when it comes to chemical services and so forth. And prior to that, test scores appear to be a lot higher, at least with our program. So this is why I bring this up. But okay, that being said, I understand, and that's pretty much the gist of my question. I don't know if you're hearing me, but I can't hear you on my end.
We can hear you. Thank you so much for your comment.
Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you again.
All right, we'll move on to our next individual, Adrene. And Adrene, can please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
We have a question for our school. Lately, we're getting a lot of learning academic adjustments paperwork for students, which means they have some sort of challenge with test taking or learning. And I noticed that you had talked about the reasonable accommodations prior to this. When you are offering reasonable accommodations, I know that a reader is an option. Do you also allow extra time on the exam for the students?
Yes, we do. So they can either have 30 minutes or an hour of extra time.
All right, it looks like our next individual is Mate Hagmeyer. And Mate, if you could click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
I have a lot of former students or licensed cosmetologists or, well, especially cosmetology, because right now we're only doing cosmetology, that are moving to other states such as Texas, Connecticut, Arizona. And what they're asking for is the breakdown of individual operations, the other states, and they're asking for that. Some of the states do not accept the proof of training. What are they supposed to do, and where can they get that information from? I always send them back to the state board and say get it through them, or some of the schools are no longer in session. Some of them did ROP back in 1999 and they want all that good stuff again. So that's my question. I'm getting a lot of those phone calls. Thank you.
Thank you. So unfortunately, we don't have that information. So to apply for the exam, all the applicant has to submit is the proof of training. And we're getting those questions from other states as well. So it just depends on what those states require, and all the states are different. So unfortunately, we can tell them what was required for the school to be approved, but we don't maintain transcripts. We don't receive exactly the number of operations. So yeah, that's an unfortunate situation. I don't know what other states are doing to handle that if a student is unable, or if a licensee is unable to find that information, but all we have is the proof of training.
Okay. Looks like we have another request from Myra Garcia. And Myra, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Yes, when it comes to the POTs, for a student who is withdrawing or is being terminated, our normal procedure is to release the POT to the student so they may take it to a different school. So if this is not the procedure that should be done, what would we be able to do for these students? Should we only be releasing it directly to a school? We just had a student who finished 1,300 hours in our 1,600-hour program before the law passed in January, and they were actually able to take their license examination, and they hold a license right now for cosmetology.
So if a student did not complete their entire program, you should not release the proof of training to them. You should instead give them their transcripts, and where the school signs on that proof of training document, it has some verbiage on there that they were supposed to have completed the entire program. So if the school signed off on that, that was an error on the school's part. I think we actually have that applicant, though. I believe I have an email from you. So we were taking a look at that.
So prior to the exam being changed and the hours being changed in January, this had never arisen as an issue. So I'm not understanding how this kind of flew under the radar. So if for the POT, you're saying the transcript, so POTs, under what we've been taught, is they are released as long as the student does not have a balance. We don't have a right to hold their proof of training because those are the hours they completed at this school.
I want to comment that just keep in mind that the proof of training is a board document. It's not a document regulated by the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary. That would be the transcripts. So we are working on updating our regulations to make that POT better, so that, and it did become a big issue when the hours changed, and that's because we had so many students that were enrolled in 1,600-hour programs, and they were at 1,200 hours and thought that that allowed them to take the test, which it doesn't. They have to complete an approved program, not just meet that hours. So it definitely has become an issue since January 1 when the law changed. And it is something that we're looking at to try to improve that process. That'll be definitely something that'll be being talked about in our board meetings. So I highly encourage everyone to follow along with our board meetings. So when you see that new proof of training being proposed, that you provide us any feedback that you might have on it.
Yes, I think that it definitely needs like maybe an extra line to show like what their contracted hours were and what they completed so that you could see that difference. And it also that people are given this POT because the newest POT that was released in February of 2021, I wasn't able to get until a couple weeks ago. And it took me quite a few emails to try to get it. So it's hard to get the most updated POT when it's not released on the website.
Oh, thanks for that. You shouldn't have any trouble getting the POT form, and we totally agree with you that an additional line on that POT needs to be added, so thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. I'll move back down to people who have submitted comments in the Q&A. So first I have Mercedes Hing, and Mercedes, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device. And Mercedes, you are unmuted.
We can go ahead and answer Mercedes' question. I believe the question was, will we receive an email from PSI or BDC when the barber exam is released? Assuming we're talking about that practice exam. And yes, the board will send an email out to our school's interested parties list. And we're going to turn it over to Lynn right now, who has some additional information.
While we were talking on other things, I was able to reach out to the supervisor for the practice exams. And right now, that is what is available is the nails, the esthetician, a hairstylist, cosmetology, and the barber. The barber is limited at what there is, but the more items will be added, and that's what will be released the first part of the year. So there is a barber out there now, but it's not the full thing at this point. They're still working on it. Thank you.
Okay, and it looks like we're still having audio issues with Ms. Hing, but she did have another second question, which is a little bit higher up, and I'll go ahead and read it out. It says, will the barber theory practice test be broken down the same way the PSI percentage question breakdown?
Yes, it should be exactly the same.
Okay, and it looks like our next question is from 4M Education. Right, and 4M, once again, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hi, I just wanted to know if you could share that email once again where we can ask specific questions for barbering and cosmetology PSI exams.
That would be barber@psionline.com or cosmetology@psionline.com.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and our next individual is Adreen. And Adreen, if you can please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
I apologize. I muted myself for background noise. I'm in a shared office. So I did have an additional question. How many minutes are allowed for our barbering students for the exam? And in addition to that, if they request for additional time, as we talked about the academic adjustments or the reasonable accommodations, you said that would be an additional 30 to 1 hour with the reasonable accommodation form being submitted, correct?
All right, so the exam is normally 2 hours, so 120 minutes. If they have a reasonable accommodation, that would add on either 30 minutes or an hour, depending on their needs.
Perfect. And then I did have an additional question. Somebody had asked in regards to the POT and completing a full program. We are having the same challenges at our school with students wanting to downgrade. So if they are enrolled in a 1,500, 1,600 hour program from the school and they want to reduce their hours or go to take the state exam, the POT will change so that it will show how many hours that they have taken in the required program at a school. Is that what I understood?
For the most part. So the POT, you should only be submitting that if they completed their entire program, and the front page of it should reflect the total amount of hours they've completed. So, I'm not sure about your school, but let's say you're approved for a 1,000-hour barbering program. It should reflect 1,000 hours on the front page of the POT.
So we have a couple of students that are wanting to downgrade to the 1,000-hour program. And if we will not approve that because they haven't completed all the required education in the 1,600-hour program or the 1,500-hour program for barbering, they are wanting to get their POT and go to a different school that has a 1,000-hour program. The 1,000 hours that they, or whatever they've completed at our school, if it's 900 hours, is not necessarily completing an entire program. So I think that was one of the challenges that we're experiencing.
Okay, so in that case, you should give the transcripts to the student and they can provide those to the next school they're going to.
So transcript, not a proof of training?
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer.
No problem.
All right, this is the moderator. I have May Laham requesting a question. And May, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hello again. Thank you. What we have our students do that are downgrading per se from, let's say they finished 1,200 hours years ago and now they want to return, we're having them re-enroll to give them the competencies that were added since this year's new curriculum. So they re-enroll, complete those competencies, and then in that case, we're giving them the proof of training. Are we on the right track with that? That's one question. And the other is, what is the latest revision of the POT, the most current revision of POTs? Thank you.
For how you described what you're doing with the new students, that sounds perfectly on track. That sounds like a great plan. And as for the current version of the POT, it is from, we're checking right now. I'm sorry? December 21. December 2021 is the most recent version of the POT.
Thank you so much. And just one more thing, when we put in the hours on the current POT, we put there how many hours they've completed out of how many hours so we make a little side note on the side just so the board knows, because sometimes they come to us years later and say, I finished 1,200 hours of the 1,600 hours. I want my proof of training to reflect that. So we put 1,200 out of 1,600. Just so the next school knows what they've completed with us.
I think that's pretty much, that's fine if you were to do that. I mean, if your school is approved for the 1,000-hour program and you're showing 1,200 hours, that's totally fine, and especially if they had completed more hours overall from other schools than that.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the moderator. Move on to our next individual, Wendy Perez. And Wendy, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hi, I'm wondering about the crossover program from Cosmo to Barbering. Will that continue to be 200 hours?
Yes, it's whatever hours are different. So basically the Cosmo, all the hours are transferable to a barber program except for the 200-hour barbering. So a Cosmo that wants to become a barber would have to take the 200 hours of shaving.
Thank you.
All right, this is a moderator. Appears that may be all our questions, but I will pause a little bit to see if anyone else has any. All right, looks like that is all our questions. I apologize. We do have one more question. From Ramirez. One second while I find you my attendee list. There you are. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
My question is, will we be moving in the future towards one license, a barber and Cosmo combined license?
It's not something that the board has discussed or I've heard of coming up in discussions in the future, so not at this time.
Thank you.
All right, and it looks like we have a request for a question from Jacqueline Glover. And Jacqueline, please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Examinations, both Cosmo and Barber, have they eliminated things such as anatomy, electricity, and so on and so forth? Can you tell me what those non-additions are on the test?
Yes, we have eliminated anatomy questions, electricity questions, and also chemistry questions, but you will still have questions in those categories based on safety. So if we're talking about electrical tools such as clippers, if they have frayed cords, those kind of things, those are safety issues. So there is kind of a fine line there in some of the categories, but it will be all applied to the health and public safety.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And just to add just a little bit, so it is very much advisable that we still continue on with going through the theoretical lecture of it when giving that information to the students, correct?
Like I said, the exams are based on the health and safety aspects.
Okay.
I'm not sure what your curriculum would cover, but that definitely would be part of what I would cover.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is the moderator. At this time, it appears there are no further questions. I apologize. We have another request for a question from individual identified as Ronnie. One second while I find you in my attendee list. There you are. Please click the unmute me button when the prompt appears on your device.
Morning.
Good
Can
morning.
everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, and in our last couple classes, we've had apprentices saying that they've read somewhere that a barber apprentice can now be the shop owner prior to passing their exam also, and we haven't been able to find anything about this or where to look to verify that. Is 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 that true, or where can we look to verify that information?
The board doesn't have any regulation that states that a owner cannot be an apprentice. You can contact DAS to see if they have any regulations regarding that, but the board does not.
So they
that
are
would be
allowed to.
Division of Apprenticeship Standards may have a different regulation, so you might want to contact them.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Right, this is the moderator. It appears there are no further requests for questions.
We can close the Q&A now.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone. This concludes our town hall today. We hope you found it useful. I want to remind everyone again to please tell your students to hit that attach button when applying online so that their POT comes immediately. It's going to really reduce our processing times. And complete those applications. Make sure the signature's on there, school signature on that POT, and the applicant has filled out their application completely. We hope this has been helpful to all of you. Please reach out to the board if you have any additional questions, and we will do what we can to get those answers for you. Thank you all so much.